Speakers sit down and everybody gets quiet. That works really well. So, well, I want to welcome you. Welcome back from spring break, everybody. Did you have a great time?
Yes.
All right, good. Those of us who worked 12 months didn't have spring break, but that's okay. We know y'all took care of it for us, and so we're proud of you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mary Gowan, and I'm the Dean of the Mike Cottrell College of Business. And we're delighted to have you here and to have our speaker here today. And I'm delighted to see some of my students who got my little incentive to show up today. So, hi, students. I'm going to introduce one of our students to introduce the speaker. We always like to involve our students in these leadership roles. And for those of you who don't know, we have the Cottrell Leadership Fellows Program. It's an application process, and there's been signs on the screens. You can ask me about it. You can ask pretty much any of the faculty, and they can point you in the right direction if you're ever interested in being part of our business leadership program here in the College of Business. But I'm going to ask Gabby Dickman if she will come up. Gabby is one of our Cottrell Leadership Fellows who joined us in our first group, and she is a junior majoring in management and is actually going to be doing an internship this summer for one of Mr. Jackson's companies, Locum Tenens. Gabby?
Try not to miss anything.
Okay. Shane Jackson is president of Jackson Healthcare, the parent company of more than 20 healthcare workforce businesses that serve over 20 million patients each year, championing its mission of improving the delivery of patient care and the lives of everyone it touches. He has led the organization through growth that has landed it on the Forbes list of America's top private companies, placement on the Fortune 100 best companies to work for and best workplaces in healthcare lists, a spot on the People Companies That Care list, and nearly a decade of Great Place to Work certification. Shane is the author of 2 books, This Is the Thing, an Amazon bestseller, and Fostering Culture, a leader's guide to purposefully shaping culture, and has written for Fast Company and Forbes on the topics of leadership, workplace culture, and living and leading with intention. He also regularly publishes insights on his own platform, shanejackson.com, and is a sought-after keynote speaker presenting at conferences and events across the country. Beyond the businesses he leads at Jackson Healthcare, Shane champions the organization's Love Lifts community impact platform that focuses on improving access to healthcare and the well-being of young people. Under his leadership, Love Lifts partners with more than 450 nonprofit organizations annually, making a positive impact in local and global communities. In 2024, Shane was named an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year national finalist, in addition to being selected as a winner in the program's Southeast region. He also has been recognized multiple years on Staffing Industry Analyst Staffing 100 a list of the top North American leaders shaping the industry and influencing the workforce solutions ecosystem. Shane serves on the boards of 3DE and King's Ridge Christian School and is vice chair of the leader-led Go Beyond Profit business initiative that promotes the belief that giving back is good for business. He earned an MBA from Emory University and Bachelor of Administration degree from Harding University. Shane Jackson.
Good job.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Gabby, for that introduction for our speaker today.
Yeah.
And I have the privilege of doing a fireside chat. We don't have a fire. We should have put a screen on.
We need one today.
We
It's
need
cold.
one today. It is, surprisingly. So a lot of impressive things going on with the company and with you. We want to talk about the company first and then hear a little bit more about you personally.
Sure.
But Jackson Healthcare is indeed an impressive company. It's on the Fortune America's Top Private Companies list, a 2024 Fortune 100 Best Company to Work For and Best Workplaces for Millennials list. It's on the People Companies That Care list and a recipient of other national and global recognitions, as we just heard. So tell us a little bit about the company. Tell us how the company got started, and then we'll move into your role in the company and a little bit dig a little bit deeper about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, happy St. Patty's Day, everyone. I appreciate everyone putting off the pint of Guinness for a little while, for those of you that's legal. And great job, Gabby. And super excited about you coming to work with us this summer. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about our business, and just thank you for having me here, and thank you for showing up, especially after spring break. Our company started 25 years ago. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year in 2000, which I realize for this audience may seem like a long time ago because that was before you were born. It does not feel that long ago. My father started our company, and so to understand the history of our business, you really have to kind of understand a little bit about my dad. He's a just serial entrepreneur, and when I was young, when I was a child, it was kind of the life of an entrepreneur and the ups and downs associated with that. And so some successes followed by some failures, followed by who knows after that. But when he was kind of in the middle of his career, and as he tells it, he was kind of looking back on kind of what had worked and what hadn't. And he had always had businesses where he'd had outside investors, venture capital and other people that invested. Anybody know who Warren Buffett is? You know who Warren Buffett? You're in business school, you should
They
know who Warren
better,
Buffett is.
yeah.
A company called Berkshire Hathaway, generally considered the greatest investor maybe of all time. I read a book by Warren Buffett where Buffett talks about the long hold versus trying to kind of start things and flip them, buy them and sell them very quickly, finding things that have a lot of value and holding them for a long time. And so he made a very difficult decision, which was to start over and start a business where he was going to have no outside capital, no outside investors, meaning that the only way we were going to be able to grow was funding through profits, and that we would be focused on the long-term hold. And so I was not a whole lot older than you at that point. I was, I finished college, lived and worked in Texas for a little while, moved back to Atlanta to do my MBA at Emory, as you heard, and I had this job lined up to go work in consulting as I was finishing my MBA, and came down and had dinner and said, hey, instead of that, I had this idea, why don't you come help me do this? And so really kind of the founding thesis of our company, this was back in 2000, where there was this kind of still new thing called the internet. But the whole idea was, how do we differentiate services, especially in healthcare, by leveraging technology? And frankly, that's really still kind of the founding thesis of our business today is how do you provide services to patients, to healthcare facilities, but you do it in a better way, leveraging technology. And so it's been kind of one of our differentiators over the years of being able to have expertise in both.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that your company is most known for is its culture. So technology plays a big role, but culture is what got you on the list of the best places to work and et cetera for that. So it doesn't happen without intention. So talk a little bit about the culture at your organization and how that has been developed and how you're maintaining it.
Yeah, so culture is kind of one of those things that I think we kind of feel like we know what it is, but we can't really define it. And so the way I define culture, kind of explain what it is it's the atmosphere that results from all the things that a group does, right? And this idea of atmosphere, like we kind of get this, like if you like watch a big sporting event on TV, and they're like, the announcer's like, the atmosphere is electric, right? Well, what makes an atmosphere electric? Like, it's, and I love to give this example. I'm a big Braves fan because I grew up here. And so in 2021, Braves won the World Series, right? And so it was super fun. And like, you go to a regular season game and it's fun, but it's kind of chill, right? You're kind of like eating hot dogs and you stand up, you cheer if you get a home run, whatever. By the time you get to the playoffs, it's like totally different. Like anything big happens, everybody stands up and cheers. And if you go to a World Series game, like people don't sit down the whole time, right? And so those things that like collectively the group does, the fans do, the way they act changes the atmosphere, which really changes the way you feel, right? And so when we talk about cultures, we usually use feeling words. We say things like, oh, well, when I'm there or as a part of that group, I feel empowered. I feel confident, like it makes me feel free. Or we say things like, wow, that really makes me feel repressed, or it makes me, feel badly, right? That's what that is. And so, but the key is all those feelings of like, what does it feel like to be part of a group? And this could be any group, it could be a company, it could be a school, it could be your family. Families have cultures. Those feelings you have are based on what you do. And it's like all of it, right? It's all the stuff that you choose to do and don't do, the way you communicate with each other, the way you handle conflict, right? Those are big, big things in determining what does it feel like to be a part of a group. And so for us, wanting to be intentional about our culture, meaning what do we want the people who work in our companies to feel like? Right? We want them to feel like they're empowered to take risks. We want them to feel like they can be creative and innovative. We want them to feel like that if they try to innovate and it doesn't work and they fail, that's okay. Like we're not punishing it, right? And so all of that goes back to kind of these core values and like these beliefs that we have about things that work. And so the intentionality of building a culture is making sure that everyone, and especially our leaders, understand what those core beliefs are, so that when they're faced with a decision, especially as a leader of like, what are we going to do here? What choice am I going to make? They understand our core beliefs that inform that are going to result in the way it feels to be a part of our company.
How do you intentionally, when you bring somebody new on, so like when Gabby starts, how are y'all going to convey some of this information to them? How do you tell them what the values are and what the culture is going to be like and what you expect of them so that they do feel empowered?
Yeah, well, spoiler alert. Sorry. So we do it through a number. Through a number of ways. First of all, we really want people to have a clue about our culture and specifically in our values before they ever come to work there, and hopefully before they apply. Right. And so like we had a conversation beforehand, and so your sister worked there, and then you called a UNG grad who was there, kind of whatever. And that's what most people do, right? You do some research before you go. And so for us, we try to be as clear as we can about like what our values and beliefs are and how they drive our decisions, because we don't want people to get surprised. That's what leads to like turnover, right? You get there and you're like, oh man, like these guys don't do things the way I think they ought to be done, right? And then either you leave or you're asked to leave. Conversely, like if you can even know before you join the group, like, man, these people think the way I think, then you're bought in, right? And so anyway, so it starts really frankly before we even come, and then we go through, and I don't know actually I don't know what we do for our interns versus our full-time employees, but like we used to call it new hire orientation. We renamed it Catch the Culture Day, because it's this full day thing when you start, and like nobody wants to go to a full day of new hire orientation. It sounds like torture. So we renamed it Catch the Culture Day, and now all of a sudden it sounds fun, right? And so, but we spent a lot of time in that day focusing on, again, like kind of those core values and beliefs that drive why we do what we do. The other thing we do is we lead everyone in that day through an exercise to discover what their own values are. Which is actually more important, and I would encourage you guys all on this as you're heading towards graduation and thinking about jobs and all that sort of thing. So there's this great research that was done about 20 years ago on commitment, right? And this idea of why do people commit to certain things and why do they commit to certain groups and whatever. And it was how committed are people, and then the correlation to clarity around organizational values and personal values, right? In other words, like if you really understand the organization's value, the group that you're with, like kind of why they do what they do, does that make you more committed? Or does have clarity for yourself? Like why do you do what you do? Does that lead you to be more committed to a group? So it turns out that having clarity of organizational values makes almost no difference on commitment. It's all about understanding yourself and what's really important and what drives you. And if you think about this kind of makes sense, right? Because you're gonna figure out like what's important to a group. Like you'll get in there and you'll kind of see what they do, and then you go like, oh wow, like I don't really like how they do that. Right? They don't think the way I think on that. They don't talk to each other the way I think people ought to talk to each other, right? And then you're going to decide if that's a place that aligns with what you believe and a place where you want to be. And so the more clear you are about what's important to you as an individual will drive how committed you are to that group. Because if you have a ton of clarity, you're like, this is the way I think things ought to be done, and like this is something that's really important to me, to the point like if I don't act this way, I feel guilty, right? And if you have clarity on that, and you find a group that behaves the way like you kind of think things ought to be done, you're going to be super committed to it. And so like in new hire orientation, that's one of the first things we do, is we say like, hey, coming in here, we want to help you spend a little time in really contemplating like what's important to you so that you can decide if this is a place that aligns.
Do you ever have people who decide to leave soon after the orientation?
Yeah, so again, spoiler alert. So one of the things, so I speak in our Catch the Culture Day.
Yeah.
Pretty much every month when I'm there. Sometimes they have to watch a video of me. And so I kind of talk about, kind of our mission and some of the why we do what we do. And then I always, at the end of my remarks, kind of say like, look, the things that are kind of why, like we're a little bit different kind of a company and why we do what we do. And some people that come in, they kind of hear this stuff and they're like, I don't know what all that is, right? Like I just came here because you guys pay more than the other guys or like, whatever. And I'm like, hey, that's fine. Like this isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, but if that's you, you need to leave.
Right.
And then I just let it sit there in silence and it gets really uncomfortable. And then, I'm like, you can leave after the free lunch, but then you need to leave, right? And so, because we know like how expensive turnover is, and I don't mean that like from a cost standpoint. I mean how expensive it is to just the trauma it creates, right? And you guys know this, even like you haven't worked in a business or kind of whatever. You know this when you've been on a team, and you have somebody, on a sports team, and one person like thinks they're better than everyone else, and they don't have to do what the rest of the team does. Or you've been in a group like doing a project in class and somebody doesn't carry their weight, or they just think you ought to do it differently than the rest of the group. Like it tanks the group. And so we want as quickly as possible people to figure out whether or not they want to opt in or opt out to the way that we do things.
No, that's excellent. We talk about person organization fit and person job fit a lot in our management classes. And this is a great example of a person organization fit. If it's your values are not fitting right, you're not going to be happy, and it's not going to work out really well for you.
Yeah.
One of the things that is most impressive physically for your organization is your campus. And so those of you who haven't had a chance to visit, it's like an Italian village. It's awesome. Tell us about that decision to build it in that way and what that does for enhancing the culture and communicating the culture.
So I am a big believer that environments really matter. And so I tell this story. So my wife's an interior designer. And when we first got married and we had like no money at all. And she wanted to, we were living in an apartment and she wanted to like redo like a kind of area of the apartment. And she like wanted to spend this money. And I'm like, really? Like on that, you know? And it was, I don't know, it was a little bit of a fight, which she won because she always wins her fights. And so, but then I just remember like when she was done, I walked into the space and I was like, oh, well, this feels different. And you know, really, if you think about this, like just the environment and how it impacts your mood, right? You walk into this building and all of a sudden you're kind of like, and even on this campus, like you walk around and it's like, it just makes you feel smarter, right? I mean, you're like, oh, I want to think and I want to learn, and, you know, kind of all that, right? And then you go into your bedroom and you're like, I want to chill, and you know, right? And when you put on, if you were ever in sports, right? You put on practice uniform, you feel one way. You put on game day uniform, you feel different, right? You know, and so I just kind of learned early on that the environment that you're in changes how you feel. It's funny. So I have a son who's a sophomore in college, and I had this conversation with him last night. He's home for spring break, and he's got a lot of kind of work to do. He's studying to become an EMT, and so he came downstairs out of his room and he had all his stuff. I was like, you're not just like studying up in your room? And he's like, no. He said, I like to have my room for resting, and I like to have another space for studying. Because when I go in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you figured this out way earlier than I did. And so we really kind of applied that. We wanted people, when they step onto our campus, we wanted them to be in a beautiful place where they were being served in a way, in a place where it put them in a mind to create and serve our customers beautifully. And you know, and that kind of drove everything that we did. There's a lot also kind of to it behind, and when you go, that you may not see, but like one of the big things from a design principle that was really important to me when we did it was I'm very big on collision points. And so, you know, we can talk about like virtual work versus in-person work and that sort of thing. But I'm a big believer in the value of serendipity, right? Those moments where you just run into somebody, right? And then it's just like kind of these connections happen that you just can't plan for. And so one of the things that you may not see when you come to our campus is we purposefully made some things inconvenient. So you kind of had to go out of your way where other people would be so that you would collide with them. We call them collision points, right? And so anyway, just a lot of kind of purpose behind it. But that was the whole idea, is that just the environment that you're in makes a difference.
I think that you're right. We found that when we moved into this building here, and we did a lot of collision points with faculty offices across from classrooms. We didn't want faculty off in a corner. We wanted them to be totally, you know, more visible to the students.
Yeah.
So it really does make a huge difference. Gabby mentioned in your intro the Love List program that you have. Tell us about that and why it's important for Jackson Healthcare to have such a program.
So the reason we exist is because we believe, my father and I believe, and now everyone who has come to kind of work with us believes, that Jackson Healthcare and all our companies is really a vehicle and a platform that lets us impact and serve others. And that's why we still have the business. And so that manifests in a lot of ways. It manifests in the business itself, right? It's how we think about serving our customers. It's how we think about supporting our doctors and our nurses, and you know, and how we treat patients and all of that sort of thing. It really manifests big time in how we treat each other in our associates and people that work together, and how we think about leading, how we think about serving, how, like all of that. But it also shows up in how we think about our interaction with our community and how we define our community. And I won't go on to this, there's a lot of like kind of thought around this, and even terms for like kind of like, you may have heard like corporate social responsibility and that sort of thing. And I won't go deeply into that, but I'm not a fan of that term. We decided to name our kind of community impact program Love Lifts. And it's really just comes from the idea that if you love someone, when they're down, you want to help lift them up. That's it, right? And so for our target, for what we do, we're really focused on especially kids who are come through disadvantaged circumstances, and then also making sure that people have access to healthcare when they need it. Is because of what we do, and when those two intersect, it's big. And so this was just a part of what we did for a long, long time. But kind of one of our core beliefs is that if something is important, someone's livelihood should depend on it. And we said, hey, if we're going to do this, we need to hold ourselves and the way that we engage and serve our community to the same standards of quality and excellence as we do the rest of our business. And so a great guy who is now our, I think, senior vice president. I think he just got a promotion, and who runs and oversees that program. One of the really cool things, talking about on our campus, we have something called Love Lifts Village, and we have, I think, 14 nonprofit organizations that work out of it, and it's just awesome. They're on campus, and they get to be, kind of part of whatever. And so, at any rate, it's just a reflection of who we are and how we think about how our values drive the way we engage with those around us.
Very good. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about you personally.
Okay.
Although obviously that who you are is enfolded into the business, as it were. But your recent book, his second book, is This Is the Thing, about life, joy, and owning your purpose. And our president talks a lot about purpose.
Awesome.
Our Center for Entrepreneurship director's here. He talks about purpose a lot. It's becoming a theme around here.
Good.
So talk about the book. Talk about you, what led you, and as you've made your career journey to want to write this book, and how you define purpose. That wasn't exactly on the list of questions.
Yeah,
but it falls
that's okay. Yeah,
several in
there's a
there
lot
as
in
we were
there.
having this conversation. So.
So I spent a few years deciding whether or not this book needed to exist. And when I tell people about it, because I wrote a book, my first book's about culture. It's called Fostering Culture, business book. And my writing, like as mentioned, I write like for Fast Company, and it's all in leadership and business and that sort of thing. And so I have to give people the disclaimer: this isn't a business book. Although there are, I think, some applications maybe for business. It's not a leadership book, even though there's certainly applications for leaders.
Absolutely.
But it is really a very personal book. And so the reason I decided to write it, it was after a kind of series of interactions, and one in particular where I was kind of sitting with a friend who just started. One day we're kind of talking about business and all of a sudden just started going like, Shane, like, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, what do you mean, right? And they just start pouring out their heart. And having gone through life with enough other people, it just made me realize all of us, and look, this is a young group, and some of you are going to be able to identify with what I'm about to say because you've been through this kind of moment, but trust me, all of you will have this kind of moment where those kind of deep questions of life that typically we ignore, questions like, why did this happen to me? And like, why am I here? Or like, I thought my life was going to be different than this, right? We don't like to think about that stuff, but we all have that moment where we're faced with it and we can't not think about it. But nobody talks about it. And frankly, especially people that have jobs and do what I do, lead businesses, really don't talk about it. And I became very convicted a few years ago. So one of the things that's really kind of changed, I think, in business over the last few years, I think is, politics has been crazy and kind of trust in institutions has really waned. People have become a lot more interested in what business leaders say and talk about, to the point where I can tell you, like, for a lot of my peers and other people that lead businesses, like, we have a lot of conversations about what should we say and not say. And so I was very convicted about my voice and the way I use my platform. And I just decided, kind of after going through a few interactions like that, like, I want to use my voice and my platform to talk about the things that nobody talks about. And so this is, it's a lot of the stories in here are very personal, but it's really just a reflection of kind of my life learning on some of these big topics, like, what does it mean to be happy, right? And what is purpose? Like, how do I even think about it? And the idea behind the whole book is that I think one of the reasons we don't like to think about this stuff is because it seems too big. Like, I can't possibly understand, like, the purpose of my life. I don't think it is. I think it's very understandable. And then the second reason people shy away from it is because it's like, okay, well, even if I could understand it, like, I don't have time for all that. Like, I got to get a class. I got to get this project done. I don't have time to save the world. And I do think you can live very purposefully. And when you understand those two things and how to apply it, it doesn't just prepare you for those hard moments that are inevitable in your life, but I think it will actually make the rest of your life much, much better.
So talk about, your own career journey through all as the company's been growing. What would you say were the drivers of your success, and then how does that relate to where you are at this point in your life?
The drivers of my success. I think I would give you maybe three. It's more than this, but I'll give you three things I think to think about. First of all, I'm a very, very curious person. You'll pick some of that up if you read this book. Like, I read a lot. I just always want to know more. And I will tell you, like, we can talk about this maybe later too if you want, in terms of how we think about hiring, and especially people at your age. But one of the things we're looking for, especially in leaders, is curiosity, right? It's just, are you someone who's just always learning? And so the reason that was an advantage for me as I look back is that I was never satisfied, am never satisfied with just kind of understanding the what. I always want to go deeper and understand the why. Why, the what is, my customers are saying this, they have this problem. The why is the root cause of what's behind it, because if I can then create a solution for that, it's way more valuable. The what is, somebody that I work with is showing up in my office and they're unhappy. The why is, like, what's the root cause that's going on behind it? Because maybe I can not just change the circumstance, but I can actually really kind of help them, right? And so it's this curiosity, not just like book learning, but about people, and really putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Right. I think that's number one. The second thing I would give you is I have always been really unafraid to take chances. And so this showed up for me a lot. I was an athlete until midway through high school, and all of a sudden I went like, oh, what's this theater thing? Okay. And I got big time into the theater and music, and anyway, I won't talk about that whole part of my life. But any theater geeks in here? Own it, yeah. Thespian Society, let's go. Yeah, all about it, right? And so, look, I mean, to get on stage in front of all those other people, and especially like high school and college and your friends are out there, whatever, and to just like go and the ridiculous things that we do, you have to, it's a very vulnerable thing, right? I've said this a lot of, anytime an artist puts out a work, like for me, this book, it's such a vulnerable moment. You are putting yourself out there for people to critique. That has never scared me. And so what it has allowed me to do is to try a lot of things, fail fast, and then find those ones that work. And so, anyway, we can talk about that one as well. That would be my second. The third one is, and this is going to sound trite, is that I also just worked really hard.
Nothing wrong with that.
And so so Jessica is here with me, her boss, and she likes, I don't know, she makes this joke about me all the time that she's like, you know, the rest of us get 24 hours and Shane gets like 30. And she's like, how do you just like kind of do all the stuff that you do? And I was like, because I don't watch Netflix. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't, and so I'm just constantly evaluating the way I spend my time and trying to figure out how I can be more purposeful about getting the things out of life that I want to do. And so even my times like away from work and whatever are just very, very purposeful. And like, look, at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, no one has ever been successful at anything without really, really, really working hard at it.
Yeah.
I mean, you just do. And like, and I tell, young people that come into our organization, I'm like, look, I mean, we can do a lot for you. We got a great place. We can train you and all that sort of thing. You have to take it, and you just got to go hard. And if you don't, you're going to fail.
Right.
But if you do, then there's great things ahead.
Yeah. So you just described kind of the quintessential entrepreneur with those curiosity and the work
maybe.
ethic
Yeah,
and
probably.
Try and fail. So I want to leave time for the students to ask some questions.
Yeah.
But first of all, what last advice would you give to this group of young people who are going to be either very soon or not too far down the road entering into the real world of work? They're in the real world of work now. Most of them are working now, but into their careers.
Yeah.
They're starting careers. What would you tell them?
All right, so after I make this next comment, you guys might kick me out. I may not get the lunch that you were providing. So this is dangerous. So I was a business management major. Okay, any other business? Yeah, okay.
A lot of those.
So I'm going to speak bad about all of us, including me. And unfortunately, most of you in this room are, well, maybe all of you are included in this. Here's the deal. When I graduated from college with my business management degree, I was qualified to do absolutely nothing. And you're the same way. Right? Okay, and so now you're sitting, like, the provost is in the back going, who is this guy and how do I shut him up?
My
right?
class is
like,
saying this isn't what you told us.
You spend all this time and all this money and student loans and whatever. Hopefully you guys are all on scholarship or something, right? And like getting this degree and you're like, Shane, I'm qualified to do nothing. You're qualified to do nothing. That's the bad news. The good news is I don't think you're wasting your time, because what you are getting is a foundation of knowledge that's going to allow you to start doing the real learning of when you start working that will allow you to get ahead. So here's the deal. When we are hiring people, especially right out of college, we're really not too concerned about what you learned in the classroom. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for, is this someone who is coachable and knows how to learn, right? That's back to that curiosity thing, right? Like, show me through your college experience, like how you learned and that you learned how to learn, right? We really want curious people because, again, as I said, like, we can give you some of the knowledge, but there's just some of the stuff you're just going to have to be curious about to learn. That's number one. Number two, shocking, we want to see that you've demonstrated that you can work hard. And I will tell you, like, we have a high bias towards people who worked while they're in school. High bias. Even if you don't need to work, I would encourage you to do it anyway. Or at least show, like, that you were involved in some things that where you were having to work
really hard and be very smart about how you managed your time in addition to the classes that you were taking. I tell you, if you cannot exhibit those two things, curiosity and demonstrated hard work, you're not going to get a job with us. And I would tell you that for better companies that aren't just desperate to hire wherever they can, they're going to be in the same place. Yeah. Right? And so as you think about where you are right now, view this time and your classes and what you're doing as how do I create things that when I'm sitting across from somebody interviewing that are going to demonstrate that I know how to learn and I'm willing to work really hard at it.
And how important are internships?
So I think internships are super important. First of all, we like them because it's like the best interview process ever. So like, the people that intern with us, like if there's that fit, a lot of them end up with full-time jobs after they graduate. I think internships are great for students because it just gets you exposed to things that, you just don't see, right? I mean, just the opportunity to be in a professional environment and to, just sit in on meetings and hear how people talk to each other on the phone and just like kind of all that sort of thing. And you're going to see I hope Gabby loves it, but she might get there and go like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was. This is not for me.
She's going to love it.
Great, right? Yeah. I mean, but like, and so really take advantage of those opportunities because maybe not all, but a lot of companies I think that do internships are really purposeful about it, right? They want to give you some of those experiences to see if this is going to be the fit for you. So I think they're great.
Good. Well, I want to give you a chance, like I said, for some questions. I'm going to ask our faculty and staff who always have questions. Hold off just for a few minutes. Give the students a chance. Sean, do we have a microphone, or Kyle, a microphone? Okay. So if you'll raise your hand, we'll give you the microphone and give you a chance to ask some questions. So don't be bashful. This is not the time to be bashful. Who wants to go first? All right, here. Thank you.
What made you have a passion for healthcare?
Good question.
Yeah, it is such a good question. So, so my dad had always worked in and around healthcare, and so I was kind of exposed to it early. But I will say, back to what we were talking about a minute ago, I think a lot of where you kind of end up in life sometimes is like serendipity. And so when I graduated college, it was not a great economy, and it took me a while to find a job. And I, finally, to be honest, when someone finally offered me a job, I didn't really care what it was. I just needed money. And so, but it happened to be in healthcare. And it exposed me to this world, and it was 100 years ago, but we were doing kind of IT systems for hospitals. And it kind of exposed me to this world. And now I talk, one of the things I talk about in our Catch the Culture Day is how important it is to me that we're in healthcare. And the reason is because psychologically, it's really, really important for me to be proud of what I do. I won't go into all that, but it is. And I love the business that we're in because if you think about it, and we have our head of our health sciences here, when you engage into the healthcare system, it is often in one of the most vulnerable moments of your life. When you are in pain, when you are afraid, when you are just looking to someone to give you answers, or maybe even worse than that, when you're with someone you love who's in pain and afraid. That's an incredibly vulnerable moment. And in that, you get the thing that you need more than anything else, which is someone to care for you. And I love the fact that 20 million times a year, we make that moment happen. And so I kind of a little bit lucked into this business, but now I'm super passionate about it.
Great, very good.
Yeah.
Right here.
Fellow management major.
Yeah.
What do you spend your time doing when you're not doing healthcare and all that? Like you said, you really like focusing on time management. What are like some of your hobbies that you would just do to kind of just gain experience and learn?
Yeah, great. I spent about a decade as a triathlete, and I don't race anymore. I haven't. It's been like 9 years, but I still work out a lot. Mostly because it's the only time I'm alone all day. It's like the only time in the morning is the only time I control because I'm with people the rest of the time. And so I love that. I read pretty fair amount. I also still have like kind of artistic things I'm involved with, listen to music, play music. I've done some acting on the side. I've been in like, 3 or 4 major motion pictures. Actually, I just found out this weekend that the last one I did in the fall, I made the cut, and so I'm going to be in it. Yeah,
Okay.
which is good. They're like, you made it through the cutting room floor. Like, yeah. Anyway, so that was kind of cool.
Give us a plug.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell us?
It's kind of a depressing movie.
Well, never mind.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
mind. Never mind.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah. I don't
Moving
bring us
on.
down. Anyway, but so you do a lot of things like that. My kids are getting a little older now, but I coached youth sports a long time. We got any softball players, fast pitch players?
All right.
So my daughter was fast pitch player, and I coached her travel team for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And which I used to tell everybody that was my full-time job, and Jackson Healthcare was my side gig.
Yeah. Sure.
And so anyway, she's in college now too, so not doing that anymore. But anyway, a lot of things like that. Writing is a big passion for me. So yeah.
You
all
were
those
right
things.
about that 36 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Next question.
So, in writing your book about purpose, what was the most surprising insight you discovered during the writing process?
Wow. What a great question. I haven't been asked that. One of the things, so in writing this book, there were concepts that I already kind of knew and had been living by and had even spoken about. But then like having to write them in a way that you can communicate and other people and explain really forced me to dive into some of these questions at a much deeper level even than I had done. And it was interesting because I spent about 6 months outlining and researching the book, and I actually had someone kind of assisting me in kind of the research phase with the idea that it would take me about 3 months to write it. It actually took me a lot longer than that to write it, closer to a year. And a lot of it was because once I got into delving into some of the topics, I was like, I need to think about this more. To your question specifically, there's a chapter in here called About Happiness, where I unpack what is happiness, what does it mean to be happy. And I will tell you, until I got into the writing of that chapter took me longer than any other chapter, because until I got into the writing of that and I started writing and I went, no, the way I've thought about this so far is insufficient. And I had to kind of keep digging and keep digging and keep digging. And what it led me to was an understanding of happiness, and more specifically and more helpfully, an understanding of joy that really changed the rest of the narrative of the book, and is part of why it's called This Is the Thing, about life, joy, and owning your purpose. And that's why. So what a great question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any popular career advice that you've heard that, from your experience in the industry, that you would disagree with, and why?
Oh. Yeah. So I will say, like, I do struggle with this a little bit, because some of the kind of advice that you get will work in some environments and not others. And so, like, I have, and I know people, and in some environments this makes a lot of sense, where they're, advising you to, if you get into organization, whatever, is to do things to make sure you're getting noticed. right? And so sign up for the high profile projects, or make sure you get your name attached to certain things, right? And whatever, right? Which in some environments actually makes a big difference, and is probably right. In our environment, it doesn't work. And this is actually it's one of the questions I get most often when I kind of speak to our new hires, is like, okay, what should we do to be successful here? And here's what I'm telling them is, like, if you want to be successful and you want to get promoted and you want to move into leadership and and all that sort of thing, here's the thing about when you become a leader, you move from being like an individual producer where you're creating value, right? And you are responsible for whether you succeed or fail. It's based on what you do. When you move into leadership, your success is completely determined by what other people do, right? Because you're not really producing much anymore. You're doing it through other people. And so the core skill required for that is to be able to serve and empower other people. And so when we're looking throughout the organization to find our high potentials, we're looking to the person that the other people on the team come to ask questions, right? Or the person who is just like kind of going and helping out when they don't have to, or the person who just like is just like leading because that's what they do, not because they're trying to get attention for it. In my experience, the people who are like trying to get attention for themselves are not going to be able to lead in a way that we think real leadership needs to happen. And so, anyway, I just like I don't know if that's good advice or bad advice. I know in our environment it's bad advice. I will tell you that it's funny. I just had this conversation with somebody like 2 weeks ago. He works for a really big company that all of you know, I won't name, and it is a highly, highly like just political place, and he's worked there forever, and it is like all the advice he gave, make sure you get credit for things, like all that sort of thing, is absolutely right there. But he doesn't believe it. And he told me, he's like, Shane, I have literally been trying to get fired from this place for 8 years. And he's like, because it's a big public company. He's like, if I can get fired, they'll give me a good package, and then I'm going to go get another job. He's like, but I can't get fired. And I was like, well, why? And he said, I don't play the political games. And so when people like, I'm on a project and they want credit for it, even if I did the work, I'm like, fine, take it. Or like, they like the stuff nobody else wants to do. He's like, yeah, fine, I'll do it, right? He's just a servant at heart. Right. And he said, so the problem is, even though I'm not trying to get promotions, I keep getting them, right? They keep because everybody wants me on their team, like the way we behave. And so I don't know. I think maybe in any environment that's a good formula.
Yeah, very good. All right, I think we have time for one last question. Right here, okay. Kyle's bringing you the microphone. These are great questions.
Yeah.
You said you like to read, and I'm a big reader too, so if you have one book you would recommend, what would you recommend? Well,
hello.
Besides
my book. Yeah, totally. Obviously.
You knew I would do that.
So this is like kind of an oldie but a goldie. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah, I've seen a lot of the head nods. Like, man, there's just so much timeless advice in that book. And so actually, like when we have friends or whatever, kids graduate from college, that's a book I'll often give them because it's really good.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. That's right, I have a microphone.
Yeah,
I don't need your microphones. Shane, thank you.
Yeah.
This has been inspirational, informative, and hopefully has got some students interested in thinking about internships and what those opportunities are and what their purpose is. Really appreciate your spending time with us out of a very busy schedule and putting some of that 36 hours with us today. So let's give him a round of applause for it. Thank y'all for coming, and look for our next one. I guess will be in the fall. So enjoy the rest of your semester. You're halfway through spring semester, so it'll go fast.
Yeah.
Okay.